Greetings and welcome to Let's Talk About Books, baby, where we talk with your favorite LGBTQ authors. I'm Anita Kelly, and my guest today is Tess Sharpe. Hi, Tess.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat today.
Oh, so am I, and thank you so much for being on the show. It's great to talk to you. I am excited to learn more about your recent release that is called No Body, No Crime.
Gotta love a Taylor Swift title.
Is that where that's from?
It's so funny. I did not come up with the title. My lovely writer friend, Cindy, who is the lovely author of the YA book, Pretty Little Monsters, came up with it because I had a really generic title, working title for it. I really struggle with titles. I get it right like every 8 books. So my generic title for it, like all while I was working on it, was In the Pines. And I was like, that's so generic. It just does not work. And so I went to one of my writers group, which is what I do when I'm stuck on a title, is I go to one of my writers groups and I'm like, please give me a title, y'all. And so I pitched the book to them. And so everyone was like throwing around titles, and Cindy was like, No Body, No Crime, because, you know, they're looking for a body. And everyone was like, oh my God, yes, the Taylor Swift connection. And Cindy was like, wait, that's a Taylor Swift song? Let's be real here. Taylor is incredibly prolific, even if you are a full-blown Swiftie and have an encyclopedic, you know, knowledge of her entire catalog. There's a lot of songs.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite ones of Taylor's, I will say. I really love it when she does her storytelling songs.
Okay, I am not familiar with it.
So yes, that's how the title came to be. I really owe Cindy for that one.
Wow, that's great. That's a great story. So what is it about? Who's the body? Where's the body?
I know, right?
Yeah.
So No Body, No Crime is like a classic girl meets girl, girls kill boy and bury him in the woods love story.
Oh, wow.
So it's about a rural PI who finds herself on the trail of the one who got away with her heart and with murder.
Ooh.
And 8 years after a sweet 16 party that ended with the 2 girls in love and that good-for-nothing boy in the ground, Mel Tillman is tasked with finding Chloe Harper, but as soon as she hunts down her ex, the 2 women quickly discover that they didn't bury that boy or their feelings deep enough, and that they have accidentally buried something with the body that a very powerful political crime family wants back.
Oh, so they're on the run.
They are on the run. It is a very zany, chaotic story. It's my ode to 1980s action thrillers and also my ode to early 90s, you know, those kind of quirky thriller films that came out in the early 90s that the Coen brothers did, like Fargo and Raising Arizona.
Oh, yeah, I love those.
Really influenced by that era of film. And also, of course, our classic Romancing the Stone.
Oh, yeah. And that's back out again, right? Or no, that's not.
Yeah, we've had a resurgence of these kind of zany romantic thrillers, which I really, really love to see.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of the War of the Roses.
Yes, I have not seen it yet. I want to see it so badly.
Yeah, me too. I haven't seen it yet either.
Oh, the trailers look phenomenal. Olivia Colman is a genius.
Oh, she is. She's great.
Yes, everything that she's in, she just elevates everything. And Cumberbatch is always a joy to watch.
Yep, definitely. I know those are two, like they couldn't have cast 2 better people in those roles, you know?
It's a great combination of just like they're going to be chewing the scenery off.
That is great. So when did No Body, No Crime release?
So this one came out in, I want to say July. So we're just at the tail end of the promo cycle for it. I just had another book come out last week, I want to say.
What was that?
My Marvel book for younger readers, for I would say late MG and early YA, about Elena Belova, White Widow, Secret Sisters. And so I had two books released in like 6 weeks. It's been a little crazy.
Ooh,
Uh,
yeah.
you never have control over your release dates with like the licensed novels. So I really had no idea when it was coming out. And I was like, oh my God, this is like going to be an intense 6 week period. Well, I'm also finishing three other books. So, it never stops.
Oh my word. How are you managing?
I don't have kids. I just have animals and I live up in the forest. So I just don't leave.
I guess not. Wow. That's something. So, Nobody No Crime came out, and that is available where anybody purchases their
Yeah, anywhere you
books.
want to get it, your local indie, Barnes and Noble, any chain bookstore, online, on Amazon. And it's also available on Kindle Unlimited for KU readers.
Nice. All right.
Yeah, I got from the beginning. I've been really pleased with that because it really allows you to tap into a readership that really mainly reads in KU, but it's a very voracious readership. I really credit my publisher and Sean McDonald for getting that for me because it's a little new for my imprint to put a book into KU from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. Congratulations. Um, so is Marvel the Marvel book, is that part of the Girls I've Been series?
Oh no, the Marvel book is about Elena Belova, our beloved White Widow spy. So it's a licensed
Oh,
novel. I do a lot of
okay.
licensed work for hire work as a full-time writer. I don't come from the kind of background that most full-time writers come from, especially when they start out young. In general, publishing is a really classist space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when you come from generational poverty like I do, you usually have another job or you don't get into publishing really at all because publishing is really designed to favor a certain class of people who have a safety net.
Oh, okay.
And I do not come from that kind of background. I like come from like the wrong side of the tracks, rural wise. I come from my grandmother was a maid. I was a maid. I don't have a college degree. And so I was very aware starting out in publishing that I was an exception to the rule and that I had been let into an industry that doesn't let a lot of people who come from backgrounds like I do in, even though I have immense white privilege and femme privilege as well, which
Mm-hmm.
has absolutely benefited me in publishing. And
Okay.
so I realized really quickly that if I wanted to write full time and I wanted to actually make money,
Mm-hmm.
I would have to produce a lot and I would have to put my eggs in multiple baskets. And so I write between 4 to 8 books a year.
Wow.
And so I write, I ghostwrite, I do licensing novels, I indie publish, I do my original novels like Nobody, No Crime. And I also screenwrite as well. I've done game writing. I've done basically anything that a girl can think of to, keep that money train going because there's just nothing to fall back on in my case. And so I realized really quickly that I was going to have to be my own safety net and I was going to have to write myself out of generational poverty, which is a really hard thing to do with the
Mm-hmm.
way that publishing is set up. So I do a lot of licensed novels, which I really love because I love working with teams. I love playing in other people's worlds. I started out as a fantasy and sci-fi writer 28 years ago because I started writing really, really young.
Okay.
But I kind of segued into contemporary thriller and crime novels in my early 20s.
Okay.
But I love getting to write, like in the Marvel space. I've written books for Jurassic World. I've written books for DC. I love getting to play in that kind of soft sci-fi space
Yeah.
because the world is already built for me.
Yeah.
And that's what I always get hung up. Get slow down and bogged down in the building when I write original sci-fi, which I haven't done in many years. We were actually just talking about in my writers group this morning. My friends were encouraging me to finally write an original sci-fi because I do have one idea that I've been hanging on forever. But
Yeah.
I get so bogged down in the world building. It takes me so much longer. And so what I love about the Marvel space or the DC space or any kind of really licensed space that's in that kind of soft sci-fi world is that it's built for me. And so I get to do all the fun stuff without
Hmm.
having to be bogged down by the world building because it's built for me, via the comic books or via the movies. And
Yeah.
so it's been such a special space. And I also really love it because these books, because they're recognizable properties and recognizable characters, they often really act as these beautiful bridges for
Hmm.
reluctant readers. I get so much mail from people about my licensed books, both teenagers, kids, and adults, being like, this is the first book that I've finished in years. You
Really?
know, because it makes them more accessible if you already know the world or it's or it's a fandom that you're really enthusiastic about.
Yeah, true.
I find that it's a lot, and we were just getting reports out literally this week. We were talking about it in one of my other writers groups about how reading comprehension is just plummeting among kids and teenagers.
Mm.
And it makes sense in our modern world. I even find myself, I doom scroll, I get distracted. I find it's actually a lot easier for me these days to listen to a book rather than to sit down and read one.
Hmm.
And this is partly because, I stare at a screen and words all day.
Yeah,
And so by
right.
the time you're done, the last thing you want to do is stare at a screen and read more words.
Yeah.
And so I try to find new ways to interact with media and book media in order to obviously keep up with my filling my creative well, because of course a writer who doesn't read is a writer who is going to become stagnant,
Yeah.
And so I try to keep all of that in mind, especially writing for teenagers. Like like White Widow, the book that just came out. It's my shortest book ever. It's 65,000 words.
Okay.
Quite short. It's a really complete novel. It's just I didn't really quite set out to do it that way, but I've also heard so much from teachers and librarians about how grateful they are that the book is shorter because it's easier to get the kids to pick up a book that's shorter. They
Sure.
won't even read a 300 plus word book, a
That
300 page book,
that makes sense to me. Everything is quick,
And
everything
so
is short blips.
exactly. And all of our attention spans are shorter, but especially to a developing brain. I can't, it's like, it's my literal job to sit here and imagine the modern teenager and their mindset and their world. But there's also times where I'm just like, I can't imagine growing up now with the pressure of social media and the immediacy of information and misinformation and the rise of AI. So you don't even know how to discern what's real and what isn't.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a really heavy thing that the teenagers and kids are growing up with. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
you can't blame them for their attention spans. They're being taught to a test. They're not being taught to value education, especially in America. Let's be real here. We just eliminated the Department of Education.
Yeah.
Which is
Well,
ridiculous.
well, that's not a comprehensive view across the United States, though.
Luckily, no. And like, that's the thing. Like, I grew up with a mother who really valued education. She homeschooled us, but we were secular homeschooled. So not religious
Hmm.
homeschooled. I think I'm a big believer in regulation when it comes to homeschooling, even though it's something that hugely benefited me.
Hmm.
But like the things that she didn't have knowledge about,
Hmm.
she got us tutors. She had other people teaching us like math and science because, English lit major that she is.
Yeah.
But I grew up in a family of autodidacts.
Okay.
And so it was always really natural to teach oneself and to seek out knowledge. But it was also easier in a way to find actually accurate knowledge versus now where AI is in every single search engine.
Yeah.
Everybody's relying on ChatGPT and wasting water. And the AI literally hallucinates things and doesn't actually give you accurate information.
Right.
And
Yeah.
grow up in that kind of atmosphere where you kind of have to mistrust everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's really sobering. And so I think about that a lot when I write my teen books, and kind of what world that they are growing up in now versus the world that I grew up in, which was just at the beginning of, oh, we're getting a computer in the house, and the beginning of the internet, that
Yeah.
was really accessible to people, the beginning of cell phones, the beginning of all of that.
Yeah.
But I can remember a time where we didn't have that, and I really am the last generation of that.
Yeah, I must be in your generation because I remember, like we were out running the streets and my
Yeah,
parents never knew where we were. We didn't talk to them all day in the summertime. And my mom didn't want us in the house because she was cleaning the house and she didn't want us dirtying it up.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and now the rise, and like I understand why parents helicopter parent. Obviously, there's so many more dangers in the world now.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I had kids, I don't have kids, I'm never having kids, but like I would have so much, I would be like the worst mother monitoring all of their electronics.
I know. I know. It's tough.
It's good that I just have dogs.
Yeah. 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 I
It
would
is
not want to have
a heavy,
kids today. No
it's a
way.
heavy thing to be a parent now,
Yeah.
not only with media and how the world is going, but with, just dropping them off at school and school shootings. I
Yeah.
can't even imagine the compartmentalization that has to happen in order for you to let your child go to school every single day.
Yep. Yep.
And I genuinely admire anyone who becomes a parent because wow, I don't think that I could handle that.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot and I don't think I could do it, and if I did do it, I don't think I would do it well. So, it's a good thing I
I
don't have
know,
any
like my
kids.
anxiety would be too much.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
better off with the dogs.
Yes, yes, yes. And speaking of dogs, we just got a new puppy. So, we're like,
Oh, what kind?
she's a Cavapoo. So, part King Charles Cavalier, part
Oh, how
poodle. She is
cute.
little. She's so tiny. I didn't think she was going to be this tiny, but she is little. She weighed 4 pounds.
Oh my gosh, she's like probably this. She's like this. She's like half the size of one of mine's heads. If you hear them in the background, I apologize. The power people are flying drones over the forest today.
Oh no!
To do fire mitigation or take pictures for fire mitigation. So
Yeah.
our dogs, who are livestock guardian dogs, are going a little crazy in the house today.
Wow. So you really do live out in the middle of nowhere.
I do. I live at the top of a mountain on 10 acres, really deep in the forest. It's so quiet out here that you can hear every single bit of wildlife. This morning, I was sitting on my porch writing, and you just hear this rustling in the pine needles, and then you see the giant flock of turkeys converging on my driveway because it rained last night. So they're hunting for grubs and worms right now. And then you hear the gunshots every 2 or 3 minutes because dove season just opened up.
Yeah. All right.
So everybody's hunting. I don't hunt myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't allow hunting on my land. I've got
Yeah.
signs everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one's allowed to hurt anybody on mine. So I have a lot of wild turkeys, jackrabbits. I caught a bear on the cameras a few weeks ago. He was
Yeah.
adorable.
Oh.
Lots of raccoons, mountain lions.
Oh
But the
wow.
mountain lions are pretty scared, which is good because I've been reading articles about like really bold mountain lions who are not running away in certain parts of the
Oh
West Coast. Like, I don't want that to happen. Like
no.
a bear, I can handle.
Yeah.
Like a bear runs away if you make noise.
Yep.
But mountain lions, oh, they can tear you apart, or they can tear one of your dogs apart, which is my
Yeah.
big word. My dogs stay inside at night.
Yeah. That would be freaky. Yeah. We have bear here where we live, and we actually had one just like running across our backyard. It was a little one, and
Oh, I love the little ones. They're so cute.
oh
They're flat feet. I love watching them on the cameras. I've
yep.
got outdoor cameras everywhere to watch every angle
Oh,
of the
they're
property, and it's
awesome.
so fun to see them.
They're awesome. So Tess, um, What do you write with an LGBTQ plus audience in mind, or are you aiming for like a broader readership? How is that when you start out on a novel?
Most of my books are queer. I
Okay.
have one outlier in my Tess Sharpe catalog, and I found that my readership really defines me by my queerness, and they really don't want to see non-sapphic work from me, at least under this name.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked, I didn't really set out when I started. I was 24 though, so I was a child.
Yes. Yep.
Set out to only write sapphic women. Like
Mm-hmm.
as a bisexual woman, I've had relationships with men, I've had relationships with women. And so I didn't really quite set out to specifically be a sapphic only writer,
Yeah.
but I always set out to write queer content because I grew up in a space where I was surrounded by queer people always, even very young, which I know is kind of unusual for my age. I'm 38, and so I know that's not always kind of my age group's experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I grew up in like a very gay family, as
That's
my cousin
awesome.
calls it. I spent a great deal of time with my gunkles, my gay uncles,
Uh-huh.
who were my mom's artist friends who kind of adopted me a little bit. I lived
Um,
with them in San Francisco when I was a preteen. And like really like I look back at like the times where you're like as a teenager or a preteen and you're forming your ideas about relationships and
yeah.
stuff. And all of the successful relationships that I was surrounded by were queer ones.
Wow.
And so I think I kind of internalized that queer relationships equal successful, long-lived relationships.
Yeah.
Because all of the straight relationships I was surrounded by were like falling apart.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of just like my experience. And so when I started out, I started querying really, really young. I started querying when I was 17
Okay. Yeah, that is young.
trying to get published. So very, very young. And so for me, I found that the industry had to catch up with the kind of stories that I was writing because I was writing reflecting my own world,
Mm-hmm.
where there were just queer people everywhere and it was super normal.
Yeah.
And that was not what was being written in the early 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
especially in YA. It was really focused on coming out narratives.
Yep.
I remember reading Melinda Lowe's Ash, and I remember how transformative this was for me. It's lesbian, a very famous, obviously, you probably know it,
Mm-hmm.
very famous lesbian retelling of Cinderella.
Mm-hmm.
I love this so much. But that book was so formative for me because it was really one of the first queer books in YA that I read that was not focused on coming out. That was a genre book. And I was
Oh,
like, oh my God, this exists. This is
yeah.
possible. Queer giving me so much hope.
That's so cool.
Because at that point, I think that I had been querying for 3 or 4 years. I can't remember when Ash came out. And I was getting over and over again, I was getting responses from agents being like, your writing is great. There's not a market for this. And the market really had to catch up with me,
Wow.
which was a really frustrating thing at the time. And it's been really fascinating to watch over the last 12 years of my career, where what used to be a detriment to getting published, which was that my characters, and I'm doing this in air quotes, just happen to be queer. And
Mm-hmm.
this is how the industry has always defined my characters. They just happen to be queer. I don't necessarily agree with this, but this is how I've always been defined. That used to be a detriment, and now it's a positive. Literally, it was in my Publishers Weekly starred review for No Body, No Crime. I think that the reviewer was like, the queerness isn't the focus. So readers who like that, are going to enjoy that. I personally don't think that the books work unless the characters are queer. There are times, especially like, I don't think that the concept of The Girls I've Been specifically works without the two girls being bisexual.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole concept is that my heroine is trapped in a bank with her ex-boyfriend and her new girlfriend during a robbery,
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's this little twist to it that doesn't really work unless she's bisexual,
Right. Right.
And I think there is inherent queerness in everything that I do, but the industry has very much defined me by the characters just happen to be queer. And in a way, I have greatly benefited from this
Mm-hmm.
because the industry as a whole sees those books as more accessible to a broad audience.
Yes.
In their minds, they're like, oh, straight people will also read this.
Yeah.
And that hasn't been my experience, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But it hasn't pigeonholed me the way that some other authors have, and it hasn't limited my scope.
Mm-hmm.
Way that the industry has put limitations on other queer authors. It is in a way a kind of weird privilege
Mm-hmm.
when they view the work as commercial first and queer second,
Yeah.
even though I don't quite necessarily agree with it on a craft level. It
Mm-hmm.
has benefited me in terms of how they market the work.
I'm sure. And yeah, and as you said, it appeals to a larger audience. You're
Yeah.
selling more books. So do you think that like the LGBTQ plus community has been supportive? Or
Oh, yes.
yeah.
My queer readers are everything. They're so enthusiastic. They're so wonderful.
Oh.
I'm still selling thousands of copies of my debut, and it's almost 11 or 12 years old.
And what was
You
that
know,
called? Far
I,
From You?
yeah, Far From You. My debut, which, in a lot of ways wouldn't be published today. I don't think that it would be publishable today because it does deal with some topics that are a little taboo, I would say, because it definitely plays into the dead lesbian trope.
Okay.
Um, because the love interest is dead from page one because it's a murder mystery.
Uh-huh.
That's my problem. That's the thing that is this fine line when you're writing queer content. The thing that I always tell my readers is that I can't guarantee that queer people aren't going to die in my books because I'm a crime writer. you know,
Yeah.
People die, but I can promise that no one is going to die because they're queer. Because that's just not a story that I'm interested in telling. I think that that's a story that other authors can tell really well and tragically and really in a beautiful, tragic way. It's not something that I'm personally interested in exploring.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like my promise to my readers. I'm like, I'm sorry, some people are going to die, but we're not going to die because of our sexuality.
Yeah.
This is not where we go. But no,
That's
they're so faithful. They're so sweet.
oh.
And so many of them, because I had such a big gap
Mm-hmm.
between my original YAs. There was a 7-year gap between between Far From You and The Girls I've Been.
Okay.
A lot of them have grown up with me, So
Mm-hmm.
I have women who were teenagers in 2014 who now are picking up No Body, No Crime as grown-ups,
Oh.
and I can't even describe how lovely that is,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how wonderful it is to be able to build that readership. And I find that the Sapphic readership is really loyal.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They like your books, they're going to keep buying them because, there are a lot more than there were when I first started publishing, which is just an immense joy to see.
Yeah.
But we still have so many more miles to go
Mm-hmm.
in terms of diverse content, in terms of intersectional content,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and in terms of exploring the trans experience,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yep.
is so important.
Yeah. Definitely.
And publishing still has a lot of ways to go because they will acquire some of these books, but they won't put the marketing behind them.
Yeah.
And they need to.
Now, are you with a mainstream publisher?
I am with basically I've worked with almost everyone at this point in the Big Five, either under this name or another name because I ghostwrite as well.
Okay.
And so I've worked with pretty much everyone at this point. No Body, No Crime is Macmillan. And it was my first real experience with like a boutique imprint. MCD is a very, very small imprint. There's just 3 editors. And so I've always been part of like really big machines.
Uh-huh.
And so that was such a cool experience to have a much smaller team that really is kind of an experimental imprint, that takes really big swings and chances.
Mm-hmm.
Sean McDonald's is a really, really interesting president, in terms of our imprint. Like, he's willing to take, risks, which I really, really love.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great. So, you mentioned, right, people die because they're crime novels. Like I think back to some of the older, like movies and screenplays and like, the Children's Hour, which was like, it's a classic, but in those, but in those movies, like there wasn't a happy ending, right? Queer characters were like, I don't know, they were kind of like freaks, do you feel like, because of that, do you feel a responsibility to like portray queer characters in a better light, than they had been, than those tragedies?
Well, I will say that I really feel the weight of the fact that my first novel did not is the love interest is dead. And so it is a tragic love story wrapped in a murder mystery bow. And I think that in a way, that's why it still sells to this day, because it's really different than the queer YA content that exists now. This is why I say, I don't know if it would be published now, if I was querying it now or trying to get it published. And I actually just had an interesting discussion with Lisa Yoskowitz, who is my editor, my YA editor, of my next two, who was also the editor of Far From You. So we've been working together on and off since our early 20s.
Nice.
And we both were like, we don't know if this would be publishable these days.
Yeah.
And I felt the weight of that, because it was not something that like I was attacked for or anything like that. It is a book that holds a really special place in a lot of people's hearts, which I'm very honored about.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But I knew that writing further books, especially in YA, that I needed the sapphic characters to stay together and not to like continue this kind of thread of tragic love stories.
Yeah.
And for my own creative desire as well. My heroines are always described by my readers as very morally gray. I don't particularly agree in some senses. Like Nora from The Girls I've Been is discussed as very, very morally gray. I think that Nora is very moral. I think that her morality, however, is defined by how she grew up. And I've spent about 20 years writing in this very specific thread of writing about the daughters of criminals. I've written The Girls I've Been, The Girls in Question. My one straight novel, Barbed Wire Heart, also is in my criminal daughters trifecta. And then I have one other book that I have not written that also is part of this kind of theme. They're all books that I came up with in my early 20s when I was really, really angry. I had dropped out of college. I had come back home to help my mom with the mortgage because otherwise the house was going to be foreclosed on. I was cleaning houses. And so I was basically like, oh my God, I just am not able to, this is my life, scrubbing rich ladies' toilets, just like my grandmother before me. This is all that it's going to be. And so while doing that and listening to a lot of Lucinda Williams and Steve Earle, and angrily scrubbing toilets, these 4 books kind of came to be in my head, these criminal daughters, and this kind of idea of who you are and how you can be something else when your entire life is defined by a parent who continually makes abusive and criminal choices for you.
Yeah.
And because of that, I really, I think that I probably have I have a soft spot for the criminal daughter characters. I definitely do.
Well, I would think that's a hard, that's a hard character to write, I think.
It is.
Because you want them to be likable. Yet they have this kind of nefarious background.
Exactly. And so I think I have a little bit like rose-colored glasses when it comes to them in a way that maybe my readers don't, because they really do define them as being morally gray. And I see them as very moral because they try really hard to get away from the criminality that defines their childhood.
Yeah.
And they often don't kill people even when they really should.
Well, that's not gray to me.
Exactly. But as I was closing out this kind of 20-year journey of these 4 books, because I'm hopefully going to write the final one next year. We'll see.
Okay.
I kind of like was like asking myself, okay, well, what do I do next? Like, what is the overarching theme of the next 10 or 15 years? And No Body, No Crime is the first step in the new thread that is defining the work. And that is the exploration of women who do kill.
Mm-hmm.
And the inherent privilege of white women killing specifically, because obviously I write about white women because I am white, and the consequences of it, both on yourself and your community and the ripple effects of it. And so No Body, No Crime is really the first book in that kind of new thread. I have a YA coming out next year, probably. We'll see. Gotta wait. I'm still waiting to see if we're done with revisions and moving on to copy edits or not. And that one also really explores it. And these characters, I would say, are deeply morally gray. No Body, No Crime takes a lot funnier and darkly humorous take on this thread of women killing. But the next YA is a lot darker and more serious about it and what happens. And it's been really interesting to kind of sink into that new arc after being so defined by the criminal daughters for so long.
Gray characters are, I was just thinking of the Hunting Wives. And
yes,
those are definitely gray characters. They're very popular though, right? Like
yes.
People love them. But they're criminals.
Yes. And the thing that I always come back to is I write about surviving. I write about girls and women surviving.
Yeah.
And really the core question that I'm always circling around is it immoral to survive no matter what?
Yeah. That is quite a question.
It is. It's quite a question. I've spent the last 20 plus years trying to answer it. I'll probably spend the next 20 plus years trying to answer it.
Yeah.
And what a privilege to be able to do so.
Yeah. But it's true. Like, and I don't think that, someone from a privileged background can answer that question. Like, it just does not, they just can't. Like, they have no idea,
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I write about rural women, I write about rural life, I write about poverty, I write about all of the things that defined me as well, and I can't really write outside of that, unless I'm, writing as somebody else, which I absolutely do sometimes. I have pen names galore.
I love that.
But when I'm writing, this where my brand is very, sapphic rural women, crime novels, survivorship, and this is really the core of what, makes me happy as a writer. My Sharpe work in general is the thing that, the thing that I put my face to, the thing that I promote publicly, the thing that I don't, that I am known for inside the industry and outside of it. And it's been very educational just as a person. It's been really educational to see how different the rest of the world views rural life. Especially because, in publishing, you're working with city people.
Yeah.
You're working with people who predominantly live in New York City.
Yep.
And then in Hollywood, you're working with people who predominantly live in Southern California. And I write about far Northern California where I grew up. And it's might as well be a different world to everyone in Southern California.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. And it is. It really is. And it leads to fascinating conversations and funny conversations as well. My agent, Jim McCarthy, is a bona fide city boy. I love him to death. But when I pitched him No Body, No Crime, there's a plot thread with these feral peacocks in the book. And when I pitched in the book, he read the pages, and the peacocks didn't show up in the first like 30,000 words that I gave him for a book proposal, but they were in my synopsis. And he wrote to me and he was like, Tess, I don't understand the peacocks. He's like, are you trying to be camp? Is it like Versailles? I don't get it, because in his mind, peacocks are like these beautiful birds that like trot around a garden in a castle. And in rural life, feral birds get bred. And, there's little emu and bird farms, in rural areas. And then sometimes a bird gets loose, or sometimes a few birds get loose, and then they breed, and then they become feral, and then they terrorize the entire neighborhood because big birds are terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so funny. Every single time I talk about the peacocks and No Body, No Crime, I can tell who's a city person and who's a rural person, because all the rural people have a bird story.
Yeah, right. Yep. Definitely.
And all the city people are like, peacocks? Really?
I love my area Facebook page. I'll see things like someone's peacocks are loose on such and such a road, or
exactly. Oh my gosh, that's so funny, Anita, because I have been like trying to find a way to do a thriller where the center of it is a rural community Facebook page, because that's where all the news is.
Yeah,
right.
Oh, yeah, that's where I hear everything.
Problem solving happens.
Heck yeah!
And I'm like, I've been trying to find an in for it. I haven't quite found it yet, but I know it's eventually gonna converge in my brain, and then I'm gonna come up with something great.
Awesome.
But like, I know that there's a story there, there's a book there, and I'm like, I just haven't quite figured it out yet.
Yeah,
because it is community hub, all old, especially if you're like, I live in an area where it's a lot of ranches and older people. I'm one of the youngest people on this block, and I'm 38, and so it's like all they do is use Facebook,
Yeah, right.
They don't use anything else. And it really, like, it can be really, really lovely. It can also be hilarious, but it's like they're the first stop for crime, really, because especially out here, like the sheriff doesn't want to come out here, it's 40 miles.
Yeah, right.
They're not come out here. If someone's trespassing on your land because they're going to go try to poach some doves or turkeys, they're going to be gone by the time the sheriff comes out there, if he even comes out. Yep. So it's the kind of community that you end up having to problem solve yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And no matter what politics you are, you kind of come together over these things over and over again. And it's been really, it's been very interesting to watch. And, I live in forest fire country. So, that is also like, that's where the most reliable fire news is.
Yeah.
Is the Facebook group.
Yep, definitely.
As good as CAL FIRE can be, they only issue statements, twice a day because they're busy fighting the fires.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. Yeah.
Information hub. And I know that there's a thriller in it. I've got to figure out the other missing pieces to it.
Yeah, no, it is. I live at the base of the Blue Mountain and like off the Appalachian Trail, and there was a huge fire last summer and we could see it burning, and everything was like, anything I wanted to know, I went to the Facebook page,
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So. Yeah, you got to. And it's good that such things exist. Like social media can be a hellscape.
Yeah.
But the fact that it can connect, these rural outposts and create solutions to problems that nobody else is going to solve.
No, they're not. Yeah. It's like you're on your own and you rely on your neighbors,
No, you really are in these rural areas, and it's just, like our rural community is a disenfranchised one, no one cares about us unless it's to pay lip service to us during election time. And then it's usually just to the ranchers and farmers. And those people, in order to ranch or to farm, you have to have a lot of money and generational wealth.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. Yeah. So, Tess, that is about all the time we have for today. I'm sorry to say. But I am wondering if you have any parting words for our listeners today.
Oh, well, I just had so much fun talking with you.
I know.
Went by so fast.
I know. It was great talking to you. I would love to continue this conversation. So when your next book is coming out, let me know.
I definitely will. Yes, the next one is going to be the YA, I think, probably next fall. So
Okay.
we'll see if we get to copy edits or not. I turned it in a little late, so it's my own fault if it gets delayed.
Ah, well, it happens. I'm
It does. It
sure.
happens.
Yeah.
Ironically, there was a forest fire.
Oh, really?
There was. We didn't have. I didn't have to evacuate this time, but it got about 3 miles away. So
Oh, wow.
I had all of the animals carriers ready at the
Yeah.
ready, just in case. My go bag is still sitting on my armchair, and there it will stay until probably end of November when
Yeah.
we finally hit the all clear for fire season.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's scary.
It's stretched out. It used to be like until October, and now I don't put the go bag away until the end of November, just in case.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. So, listeners, we have been talking with Tess Sharpe, and her most recent release is called Nobody, No Crime. And it is available anywhere you purchase your books. So check it out. I think you're going to be delighted. And Tess, thank you so much for being on the show. You're welcome back again anytime. But that is all the time we have for today. And I'm
Thank you
Anita
so much
Kelly.
for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And thanks for joining Liz. Talk about books, baby. But until next time, may your journey be lighthearted, peace be plenty, and be safe, folks.